Welcome back to Ansible inventory session. In the last session, I had shown you how we can connect to the same server, though it is the same server as you can see here under the inventory file. It is under the not just because it is under local group, it is basically because the IP address that we are using here, it is the IP address of the same machine. If I show you here, this is the IP address of the same machine and I'm specifying that with a host name ANSI machine. It is the name host name of the same machine, IP address of the same machine. But even to connect to this particular machine, I'm specifying it just like any other remote machine, and I established a passwordless access SSH DevOps at the rate ANSI machine. You saw that there was a passwordless access. It is not asking for any password. But where it is remembering those information, and I push the public key into that same server, and that you can see here under home. In fact, it was not required. Otherwise, here it is difficult to show because the private public key pair is also under the same DevOps.ssh. So you can see here private public key pair is also here. So remembered here, whatever key that I have pushed, that push key is also under the same folder. If it were to be any remote machine that we will try out in this session, it will be there in this authorized keys. And you can see that. So if I open this file, you can see that public key which has been pushed. The public key is here. You can see at the end DevOps at the rate Fancy Mission, which is the signature of it. Okay, let me just come out of. So how I would go ahead before that, I'll make a small change to its inventory file also. Host. Instead of using it like this, I'll make a few changes here. I'll call this as UB remote, or let me call it as COS remote, that is CentOS remote machines. And another group for the future requirements, I'll make it as UB remote. So these are two groups that I'm making. Okay. And these, instead of specifying it like this, I'll call it as UB client 1, sorry, COS client 1, this is CentOS machine, COS client 1, and this is COS client 2. And I'll call these as UB client 3 and UB client 4. So I'm just making a small changes here. And how do I connect to those machines? Okay. First, we need to ping it. It is essential. If you want to ping, remember ping or the other ping or the SSH, they work on the basis of this local DNS. So here that name should be entered. Okay. So we have already did the ping with respect to these machines. We have already done the pinging. So we will do now connect to them with the remote connectivity. Those machines are available here with me. I showed this to you in the past in one of the previous slide. So here are my 4 servers, and those 4 servers are having the details like this. These are the 4 different client servers, and there the username happens to be dev client. Okay. But for some time, I'll keep the Ansible to the side. My job is only to check connectivity and passwordless connectivity with the remote servers. Ping client 1. I'll just show it to you with one of the servers. Okay. And that should work with the other servers also. I just made a small change to this inventory file. To this DNS file. which was necessary. So first the IP address should be given and then the name should be given. In fact, in my previous video, it was the other way around, but still it worked. But don't go with that. This is the proper format in which it is supposed to be given. First the IP address followed by this. So I'll keep the Ansible to the side for a while, and then I'll show you how I'll establish passwordless connectivity. And you already know here under hyphen A, here you have a .ssh folder, and under the .ssh folder you have the private key pair already available. So let me now, whether I'm here or anywhere, it doesn't matter whether I'm inside the Ansible folder or not, because whatever I do now has nothing to do with the Ansible folder. So it is purely to deal with respect to the SSH. So I will go here by etc host. So here I have 4 remote servers. I'll ping each one of them. Ping client 1. You can see it's able to ping. Likewise, if I try it with client 2, it will be able to ping. Like if I try it with client 3, it will be able to ping. And the same thing with respect to the client 4 also. Now, when it comes to establishing SSH connectivity, SSH dev client, that's the username in that remote machine, client 1. You can see now it is trying to remember that. I'll specify it as yes. This you need to do it with each one of them. It is asking for the password. As I enter the password, only then it will be able to establish the connection. You can see here I'm in my local server, whether here I'm connected to that remote server, COS client 1. This is a remote server. Now I will establish a passwordless connectivity. I'll exit from this. And this time when I'm doing it, before doing that, what I'll do is I'll do SSH copy ID hyphen I slash home slash DevOps. It's in the current machine slash dot SSH slash ID RSA public key. So this I will put into this remote server, dev client 1. So I'll push it into this remote server. It is asking for the password. Done. Now if you check connectivity, this time it will go without any password. Now the same thing I'll going to do it with others also. So all that I'll going to do is, in fact, the server name username in all my machines are dev client only. So I'm establishing the connectivity. Okay. This here you can see it's connecting to that machine, and that same thing I'll try to do it with the other machine also. Okay. Connection is, because I forgot to enter the password. That's okay, no problem. Because remembering it in the known host is most important. Here, let me enter it, exit from that. All that I'll going to do is I'll go back to this SSH copy ID. I'll do this, I'll push the same public key. Same public key. I have the private key with me. Here I have the private key. ls.ssh. This is my private key and this is my public key. And I'm trying to push that public key. And here is that uh, here is the path slash home slash DevOps under .ssh folder. So that is the path that I'm specifying. So I'll now going to do that SSH copy ID with respect to client 2. It is pushed. It's only pushed, no remote access. I'm trying to do the same thing with respect to client 3. Okay, probably at that time it had not entered that. The key is pushed. with respect to the 4. Yeah, I have pushed the key. Now you can check whether the remote access is possible. SSH with client 1, it is possible. Exit with client 2, it's possible. Exit. Observe every time from my current machine, controller machine, I'm going into the target machine and I'm exiting. This is with another such target machine. Client 2, client 3. Maybe the information it is showing is different because first two are the CentOS clients. These two are the Ubuntu client. That's what is showing more information. Okay, so that I have established a passwordless SSH connectivity with all the core machines. Now let me get into Ansible folder. Okay, so here if I cat the inventory file, most important here is not the client one machine name or client two name or client three name. It is this IP address. Connectivity always happen through the IP address. For my simplicity's sake, I have alias them with the client name, client 4, client 3, like that. Here also in the this is the inventory file. In the inventory file, I am aliasing them with a different name. COS client 1, COS client 2. But anyway, I had already established SSH passwordless SSH connectivity with these servers. Now, because of that reason, if I try to do Ansible remote -yum ping, if I'm trying to push the ping module into all these servers, okay, 1 minute. The remote group is not there, right? I missed out on that. Remote group doesn't exist now. What is exist now is Ansible COS remote. It's a group that is existing. COS remote, UP remote, because that remote group is now remote. -yum ping. And you see, it is still showing some issues. Let me just resolve this issue. I'm showing you this error basically because it doesn't know the username. Because in the inventory file, it was not having any information regarding the username. Earlier, we have connected to it through the username as well as the machine name. If you remember here, observe that here when we were trying to do that connection, the connectivity here is through the username client and the client. So for that purpose, I had made a small change in my inventory file. And naturally, when I make that change in the inventory file, now the machine, controller machine also need to remember the remote machine. Here, instead of host, I changed to the latest, instead of this host, which I specified earlier, I changed it to the latest configuration, that is Ansible underscore host, which is an essential thing in the latest version of Ansible. And then I'm specifying Ansible user as dev client because it is no longer the same username DevOps, because current machine it is working with the username. My controller machine is working with the username as DevOps, and deliberately here I am using a different username in these remote machines. So I need to add here, following this I need to add Ansible underscore user as dev client, and even here also Ansible underscore user equal to dev client. So next time when it is connecting, it will having some problem because it needs to remember this new connectivity name in the known host. So let me just show you the same COS remote. I show you both the things work. It's because I had already worked it out before showing it to you. Whereas the same thing, if I tried showing it to you after working it out, and I just show it to you with the U remote. See, this is what it is asking whether I should remember this new fingerprint according to the new name, because here it is named as UB client 3, UB client 4 rather than client 3, client 4. So I'm just specifying it as yes. And for the next one also it is asking, but it's not visible there properly. So here it only happens once, first time when I'm trying to do the login. Now onwards, you see it works. It doesn't require it. That's all that is, because here if you go under .ssh, here is a file known host where it remembers all that information. Okay. Sorry. Let me get into that Ansible folder. Be very careful about this particular common error that most of us will do. So here is my configuration file, which is pointing to my inventory file. This is my inventory file, and I can the ping module to the machines under the group UB remote, or to the machines under the group COS remote, or to all the machines. And observe here, sorry, while it is doing that, it is not using the client 3, client 4 names, it is using these new names. And once it works with this inventory file, it is no longer referring to this DNS for connectivity. This is required only in the beginning. Establish the connectivity. Please note that particular matter. Okay. Thank you. We will go ahead with the following things.